Hello everyone, today Mr. Brodie and I are going to be presenting our research on Dennis Rader, a man more widely known by his terrifying nickname, the BTk Killer. BTK stands for bind, torture, and kill, which Rader himself used to describe his preferred way of killing his victims. His killing spree spanned from 1974 to 1991, so 17 years, and it was in and around the area of Wichita, Kansas, during which he took the lives of 10 innocent people, including men, women, and even some children. What makes this case particularly disturbing is not only the brutality of the crimes, but also in the way that Rader was able to live a seemingly normal double life. Dennis Rader appeared to be an upstanding citizen. He was married with 2 children, served as the president of his local church council, and worked as a compliance officer for the city. He was respected by his community and lived what many would call a typical suburban life. Yet behind this mask of normality lived a dark secret. As a serial killer, he would meticulously plan his crimes, stalk his victims, and often send taunting letters to not only the press but also the police. He used these letters to not only taunt the police but also seek notoriety for his crimes. His ability to lead such a double life without raising serious suspicion is part of what makes this case so chilling and psychologically compelling. In our presentation, we aim to explore the psychological dimensions of Dennis Rader's behavior. I will be focusing on psychopathy, particularly how traits like lack of empathy, emotional detachment can be linked to violent crimes. Mr. Brodie will take a closer look at antisocial personality disorder, which we will refer to as ASPD, and how this clinical diagnosis may explain Rader's pattern of manipulation, deceit, and remorselessness violence. Together, we hope to provide a deeper understanding of the twisted mind behind the BTk Killer. My first argument is that Dennis Rader exhibited strong traits of psychopathy. Dennis Rader's criminal behavior and overall personality demonstrates several traits of psychopathy. Psychopathy, as outlined by Dr. Robert Hare in his Psychopathy Checklist Revised, also known as the PCLR, includes features such as superficial charm, grandiosity, a lack of empathy, manipulativeness, and shallow emotions. When examining Rader through this lens, his actions and demeanor reveal a chilling alignment with these criteria. Rader meticulously planned each of his murders. He often stalked his victims for days or even weeks, learning their routines and their vulnerabilities. This level of premeditation reveals not just criminal intent, but a calculated and methodical mindset devoid of any empathy. He referred to his victims as projects, depersonalizing them in a way that speaks to his environmental detachment. To gain access to their homes, Rader used deception, posing as a repairman or more commonly as a delivery person. His manipulative behavior, combined with his calm, matter-of-fact description of these events during his courtroom confessions, points to an individual who lacks remorse or emotional depth. Rader also engaged in prolonged communication with the media and law enforcement. He sent graphic letters, scene drawings, and even souvenirs from his victims to the press. These disturbing acts were not only meant to taunt authorities, but also seek attention and recognition for his crimes. His desire for notoriety reflects grandiosity, another defining psychopathic trait. He feels the need to be in control of the narrative, which shows clear signs of narcissism, as well as a lack of concern for the pain and fear he inflicted. Psychologist Dr. Hare, which I've previously mentioned, and criminologist Anderson, 2017, have both emphasized that psychology is not limited to individuals who appear obviously disturbed or antisocial. Many psychopaths are high-functioning and able to easily blend into society. Dennis Rader is a prime example of this. As I've mentioned previously, he was a church council president and lived a typical suburban life. He attended community events and led a seemingly ordinary life. However, his ability to switch between these two versions of himself, one being a socially respectable and normal human, and the other being monstrously cruel, is what makes psychopathy so dangerous and so difficult to detect. Rader's trial testimony is further evidence of his psychopathic traits. When he was asked to describe his crimes, he spoke in a chilling calmness and an emotional distance. He outlined how he tied up his victims, tortured them, and killed them. He would often do this in great detail and without any remorse. At no point did he express any genuine emotion or compassion. This flat emotional distance is consistent with the concept of shallow emotions, one of the core characteristics of psychopathy. My second argument is that psychopathy is strongly correlated with violence and premeditated crime. Violent and premeditated crime. Psychopathy is not simply a descriptive label. It's a well-documented risk factor for violent and instrumental crime. Unlike crimes of passion, where emotion overrides reason and often brings a person to do unimaginable things, psychopaths often commit what criminologists call instrumental or cold-blooded crimes. These are calculated crimes done to achieve a specific objective that include dominance, control, or personal gratification. In Dennis Rader's case, his crimes were clearly instrumental. He derived satisfaction from planning, executing, and revisiting his crimes. His goal was to feel powerful and in control, and he even gave himself his own nickname, the BTk Killer, to brand his identity. This aligns with what Woodworth and Porter in 2002 referred to as cold-blooded homicide, which they found to be far more common among individuals who score high on psychopathy measure. These homicides were often premeditated and lack emotional motivation. They are performed for self-serving reasons with little to no regard for the victim. There is also growing evidence from neuroscience that links psychopathy to specific brain abnormalities. Studies by Blair 2007 and Keel 2006 have found that psychopaths often exhibit underactivity in two crucial regions of the brain, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. As we have learned in class, the amygdala plays a major role in processing emotions such as fear and empathy, while the prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision-making and impulse control and moral reasoning. In psychopaths, these regions are often impaired, leading to an inability to process moral consequences or feel empathy for others. In other words, being, quote-unquote, a normal human. Rader's complete lack of emotional response when discussing this murder, along with his manipulative games with police and media, may be partially explained by these neurological factors. One particularly telling example of Rader's arrogance and detachment was when he resumed sending messages to the police in the early 2000s, even after he stopped committing murders. In one communication, he asked law enforcement if a floppy disk, which we can see in the bottom left of the screen, if a floppy disk could be tracked to a computer. The police replied through a newspaper ad that it could not, even though this wasn't true. Rader believed them. He sent the disk and was ultimately tracked back to the computer at his church, which directly led to his arrest. He sent them a disc. The sending of this disc was not only demonstrates his craving for control and communication, but also a degree of overconfidence and delusion about his own intelligence, and even maybe considering himself invincible, which are key parts of psychopaths. In conclusion, psychopathy is a valuable framework for understanding how Dennis Rader was able to commit such horrific acts while simultaneously maintaining the appearance of a normal and even, some would say, respectable life. His lack of remorse, calculated violence, manipulation, and need for recognition are all classic indicators. Psychological and neurological research into psychopathy helps explain not just the behaviors of killers like Rader, but also the terrifying reality that people like him can and still do walk among us undetected for years. Your turn, Greg.
Okay, perfect. So for my first argument, I will be talking about antisocial personality disorder. So how does Rader fit into an antisocial personality disorder criteria? Well, to start off, his disregard for others, including the crimes he committed and the acts that he committed on these people, show he had no regard for human life whatsoever. He also followed very well deceitfulness, as he was able to evade police and live that double life that Riley so mentioned before. He had an impulsivity to him, so he had the urge to kill, which drove him to commit all these horrible acts and murders. His aggression and lack of remorse all fit into the DSM-5 book that diagnosed Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders in the world. ASPD traits in Rader's behavior were planned executions, crimes over a long-standing period amount of time through the decades that he committed these murders, as he displayed no empathy in his confession tapes, which we have reviewed. He controlled media narrative about him, so he wanted to project his idea of his killings and what he was doing. Rader clearly meets most criteria for ASPD, including the lack of confirmation of social norms. This was by Huntyan 2022, shows that Rader fits the criteria of these. Emotional detachment and rationalization. Recounting killings in court had a flat effect on Rader, so he wasn't shocked by what he had done and the evidence against him to prove the murders. This is where the X factor comes in, as his impulsivity to kill and continue what he was doing. Individuals with antisocial personality disorder frequently engage in criminal behavior and suggest they don't learn from their actions, which Rader did. He did not have any remorse for his victims whatsoever, according to the National Institute of Mental Health 2019. Rader was impersonable. He maintained a steady life and work in the community, and didn't really show his true self until he was caught. These all fall under the category of ASPD, that he planned ahead and was able to live this double life, according to Huntyan 2022. ASPD and repeat violent offending. Antisocial personality disorder is strongly linked to violent crimes, which Rader did, as he did not just murder, he assaulted, bind them up, and tortured them, and put them through physical abuse and sexual assault. ASPD is prevalent in prison populations and correlates to persisting repeat offenders, as Schneider and Duffy point out in their article 2015. ASPD traits like lack of remorse, resistance to punishment, desire for control and attention, which obviously Riley pointed out very well earlier, as he needed to be seen in the media. He didn't just want to be a silent killer. And the emotional detachment is a major part in the understanding of Rader, as he did not have any remorse for what he did for the victims' families or what he did to them. In conclusion, Riley and I have pointed out through this presentation Dennis Rader's disturbing overlap of psychopathy and ASPD. Psychopathy, internal traits, lack of remorse, planning ahead, thrill-seeking was a major point in Rader, which is clearly aligned with antisocial personality disorder. Psychopathy showed that Rader was able to commit these acts silently, more like living a double life and being able to commit brutal murders. These psychological understandings help us understand the minds of killers and serial killers alike in being able to evade detection from police for years and commit violent crimes. That'll be it for our presentation today. Thank you very much.